recording, and I will jump right into screen share after I take it off of my email. All right, everyone can see the screen. All right, so this is the second module, but it's Job Search Essentials Part 1, which is resume and cover letters. The Part 2 is networking, and we'll cover in person as well as virtual and LinkedIn. Hang on, let me get my bearings here. Okay, so first we're going to talk about what are the job search essentials. We'll do a full how-to on how to write resumes, go through the checklist that you already have in the student resources folder. We'll talk about writing your summary statement, listing your skills and your accomplishments, and then we'll also talk about how to in cover letters. And then, as I said, time for questions. Before I jump into any of that, I want to just give you my perspective on resumes, because you will find whatever you would like to hear for advice. For every person who says a resume should be 1 page, there are other people who say it should be 2. If you want to hear that a resume should be 6 pages, you might even find somebody who will tell you that if that's what you're looking to hear. But I'm going to tell you what my background is so you can decide whether you want to listen to me or not. I have been in and had a stupid number of jobs and interviews myself in all kinds of industries. Having been a high-level manager in a supervisory position, I was on several hiring teams and hired for several positions. I was invited to other agencies to hire for their teams. And at one point I had started a GIS internship. GIS is mapping, and there is programming component to that. Interviewing students for this was every semester for 4 years, so that is a lot of resumes and interviews. And then I also work with all of my mentees and coachees on their resumes. And I'm always, when I give the advice, a lot of times I will go and double check. Has something changed? Is it different for a different industry? And it usually is the same, but I do fact check myself, especially because as a business consultant, I am giving other people advice and often doing the hiring for them. And so I'm always double checking to make sure that I am working with the best practices. So that is where, hold on, I'm gonna try to open the chat, and I'm getting the little scroll of death here. Can you all still hear me? Someone unmute and let me know that you can still hear me.
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't hear you anymore.
You hear us? Okay.
Okay. So the purpose of the resume is to introduce yourself to employers, present your qualifications, and secure an interview. The goal of writing the resume is to, hold on, I can't even move you guys. To showcase your experience, education, and skills in a standard format, which is easy for recruiters to read. So the keys there are securing that interview. You're not, I don't know if you can still hear me, but I am getting this process has just died.
I can still hear you. You're frozen now, though. Carolyn's not. She's still moving. And so is Stacy, but
That's the way.
Carolyn is dancing.
Yes. We can tell Laura about what we did at HackUpstate in class.
Oh, you're back. Oh my gosh.
We
Can you hear
never
me?
left.
You never
I
left.
can hear you.
I left.
It's
Wow.
like missing time. Where were you?
I don't know. That was so weird. Never ever have had that happen before. If it is because I'm using a virtual background, I will turn it off. Okay, so I don't know where we left off, but anyway, you've probably been staring at the slide for a while. Anyway, the point of this slide is that we are looking to secure an interview, not necessarily get the job. You want them to read your resume and say, huh, this person sound interested and somewhat qualified, and I want to talk to them more. And then the standardized format part is they're looking for something that's easy for them to read. They can scan really fast, hit the high notes, and move on. So we're not trying to do anything wowie, zowie, or like dazzle them. And we are in certain ways, but not in the fact that we're trying to be different. This is one of the cases which we need to be a cog in the machine, and stand out in different ways than we traditionally like to. So it's kind of the difference for me. I used to love MySpace because you could make it your space and be very creative and make it a little bit of your personality. This is more like Facebook, where it's standard. Everyone has the same pieces and you just want to fill in your information so they can get to the point. And then this is just for some perspective and why a lot of times even qualified people don't get called in for interviews, and what your goal is with the resume. So imagine you are trying to get an interview, your goal, with a job that is receiving 100 applications. They get 100 applications and 50% of them aren't really interested. So they haven't submitted a cover letter. They haven't used the right keywords. They just said, oh, here's a job. Let me just throw my hat in the ring. That is pretty obvious. So some people do that as their strategy, and they wonder why they never get called in for an interview. The next round of people just don't seem that interested. They don't sound excited about the job. They haven't really referenced what the job is. So they have maybe the next round of trying. The next round of people are qualified, but they don't stand out. So I have probably 10 resumes where everyone looks like, well, they meet the qualifications, but why would I choose these people to come into an interview? So you want to make it to the 5%. If they're only going to interview 5 people, that's what you're shooting for, is 5 out of 100 to be called in to have an interview. And then of course, only one person actually gets the job. Now, if you were trying to get in a position where they receive 200 applications, you're trying to be in the top 2.5%. So you don't want to be in the ones who come off as not interested. You don't want to be the ones who didn't follow directions. So you didn't seem like you were interested enough. You're qualified, but you don't stand out in any way. I can't decide whether I'm going to bring you in for an interview or the person who had a really amazing intro statement and I'm like, cool, I want to talk to this person. You need to be even more on point. So that's our goal with the resumes. And then so some of the most common questions and conflicts around a resume: how many pages should it be? I always say 1 page, because if you can't sell them on 1 page, you're not going to sell them on page 2. So why not have everything on page 1? Should you have your experience or your education first? It depends on how you're trying to apply for a job. If you want to apply for very entry-level jobs like internships or jobs that have entry-level in the description or title, then you'd be okay having your experience at the top. For most other cases, really any other case, you want your experience at the bottom, because your goal is for them to read from this top to the bottom. And the one thing they're always going to look at is education. I think I'm saying this backwards. If you were doing an entry-level job, you want your education at the top. If you are not, you want your education at the bottom, because they're going to look for your education. So that forces them to kind of roll their eyes down the page to get to the education. And just subconsciously, they know that if you are not applying for an entry-level job, your education shouldn't be at the top, because that is the format of an entry-level resume. So in most cases, your education will be at the bottom unless you're looking for an internship or entry-level position. Picture or no picture, we've talked about this before, but you don't want to have your picture on there in 99% of cases because of discrimination, just because they're supposed to be equal opportunity employers in most cases, and they're not supposed to even know what you look like. They're going to go look at your LinkedIn anyway, so let them find you there if they want to get to that level. But you don't want to be putting something in there that lets them put any bias on age, looks, race, gender, anything. So no pictures. And then you should always write in your experience in bullets. So the summary statement at the top is in paragraph sentences, but the bullets under your education are bullets for ease of reading, and so you can get to the point. Sentences have too many purposeless words. At the very top, we're going to go through the organization of your resume, but it goes heading, then summary, statement. So summary versus objective. Those are the two options you have for kind of how you introduce yourself on the resume. You should have one or the other, but again, an objective is entry level writing. So in an objective statement, you're saying what your objective in your career to accomplish is. It's not, in my mind, focused enough on the company. It doesn't help you stand out as much because it's more centered around what you want out of your work experience. Whereas the summary says, here's the experience I bring to the table and how I will put it to good use for you and the goal of this position or your organization. So that is much more, in my mind, ear-catching, eye-catching to them, and will stand out better than an objective. So an objective should really, along with the education at the top, should only be used for a very entry-level or internship position. Interest is another one, like 1-page or 2-page, where some people will say it's okay to include it, other will say not. In most cases, I do not think you should include interest because, again, it's not necessary, and it gives people a chance to think they know you before they know you. So if you put that you like to read books, or you like to take walks on the beach, or you like to read, there's too much they can infer from that. You might be too much like their sister that they don't like. You might be too much like the last employee who, was a hippie, and they feel like maybe you fit that persona as well. So you just don't want to let those things. Now, there are cases where it could play in your favor if you know that it's a small company and they have, their mission is to do organic culture and farming, and you're like, I have interest and I do permaculture and I spare time, like that could add value. So if saying that you like to travel and do this or that has no relevance to the job, don't include it. If the interest hobby you have actually provides value and makes you a better candidate, then you would definitely want to include it. The last bullet there is, should you pay someone else to do your resume? You guys might not be thinking of that, but I've gotten this question before, and I don't think you should, because you have to own it. It has to be from you. When you get in for the interview, you have to be able to talk through whatever you had on there. Pay someone to review it, yes, maybe, but have them write it for you, no. Okay, so now this is linked in the student resources folder. So let's hope I can jump out of here without. I basically just started a document that has some links to some places where you can just go and look and see what are some examples of a good resume. And as I explained before, I think Indeed is one of the better online job search platforms. So this is specifically for programming, coding. It has a lot of the same advice I've just given you. So you can read through it. I'm trying to scroll down a little slow so we can get to the examples without making you crazy. Again, this is entry level, so it's writing an objective, not a summary. So keep that in mind. But it follows the same format that I recommend. Name and your heading at the top, what your objective is, then a skills section. So your skills section should be like this, but you might format it into columns so it doesn't take up so much space in one. And they should just be short, succinct words or phrases. You don't need experienced at. You've already said this is my skills. So these are my skills, bullet pointed to the point. So this helps you with keywords to get you through any filtering systems that they might have with the applications coming in on automation. It helps you to match, are you qualified for the job? So do the skills you list match the ones that they have in the job description? Things you guys should be looking at when you're doing the research. And it's just to the point. This is that easy for them to read part. They don't have to sift through anything. You don't have to tell them how many years of experience or anything like that. Because all you're doing is saying, I have these skills. You're not telling them where you got them. You're not telling them how long you've had them. You're not telling you you're not using the little bars that say I have an 8 out of a 10. Again, they might think an 8 out of 10 isn't good enough. Your job is to get an interview. So You can talk about your level of experience with these skills once you get the interview. So don't tell them I'm partially good at multitasking or I'm partially good at problem solving. Right now, it's just a skill. And when you get there, you can talk about how you got that skill and how good you are at it. You will also be showing, so they look at your intro, they look at your skills, and then they're going to look in your experience to see more about where you got those skills as well. So this section you can include as well. It's kind of, it would fit right underneath or with skills. You could put some of the technology and the programming languages that you're using. This is just writing it out. It's not what it would look like in format. And then they have the education at the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry. They have it sort of in, yeah, at the top. This is an entry level. Sorry. Again, entry level resume has it at the top. Professional experience has the name of the position, the title of the position, where it was, and the month and date that you did it. This goes back to the standard format that they're expecting. When you go off of this format, that often opens the door to them to go, why are they not submitting it in the standard format that I'm expecting? So I've done this before myself. There's a tendency to want to put things into what they call functional format, or this is a chronological format. If you change the formats, then they often start looking for, why did you change the format? Are you hiding a gap? Or what are you, what is the reason? So I often encourage this type of format, regardless of what you might be trying to uncover, because they might go finding it anyway, or they might just say, there must be a reason. It just like that little crack of doubt you don't want them to have. I have seen and been in hiring rooms with a bunch of people who are looking at resumes going, who are we going to interview? And they have the most ridiculous reasons for not interviewing people. This person has too many volunteer experiences. Well, I don't know. This person, I don't like the way that they wrote this. I don't like, how come they wrote so many words? I mean, I've heard all of these things. So they are looking for a standard format. And when you go off the format, it makes them go, and you don't want to make them go, and then they have also put the certification, so that is relevant for this type of role, which you could also put up in the skills. Then I also included some other ones. These are all websites that I also find pretty trustworthy as far as the advice that they give. So this one is not the entry level, but it still follows what I've been recommending. So you have your header, although I would include LinkedIn at the top. Your summary, you can just put summary. You don't need to put professional. Obviously, I'm giving you a professional summary. This is not written in a sans serif font, which I would recommend. It's just a tad bit easier to read, typically, especially when it's small. And then they have their qualifications, and then the experience with the same title, company, month, date, year, location, bullets, education at the bottom. So this is the standard expected format. So you have access to this in the student resources folder. So anyway, as I said, chronological is best. You can use a 1-column or a 2-column. The 2-column looks like, and you can go right into Google Docs. This is actually the format I have mine in, and you just do sorry, I have to get your faces out of my picture. You go into the templates, look for resume. They have several options, so all of Google's resume formats are perfectly acceptable. These are all 1 columns. This one right here is 2 columns. You're just going to change the font on it. So the 2-column offers you the ability to put your skills over to the side. And just kind of in a different format. So if you are looking to do something different, most people aren't using this 2-column format. So that is an option that you could use. that would fit the standard expected. And like I said, you can just go right into Google and do resume templates, and there's a bunch there that you can start from. And you also have the resume checklist. So the checklist goes through everything I'm talking to you about. I appreciate if you can go through the resume checklist before you submit a resume to me in the folder, just because then I know you've at least gotten it to from wherever it is to here, and then I can give you more in-depth feedback. So it talks about what you need to do to get prepared to write it. I recommend that you sort of do some brainstorming on the side before you start putting stuff into the resume. So the prep work section is for you to get clear about the kind of job you want, which you're doing with the job search markups and the research. So the second part is also that, doing the research. But while you're doing that, writing down those keywords and phrases and requirements that are going to need to be listed like under your skills, or that you'll need to incorporate into the responsibilities that you have. Start listing out accomplishments from your past. It doesn't matter if they on the surface sound relevant or not. If you started a program, you designed something, you managed something, supervised someone, all of your accomplishments, if you've done any project management, if you've invented something, you have innovation you started, you helped a company grow this, or a nonprofit increase memberships, anything that you have as an accomplishment, go ahead and just brainstorm it, put it on paper, then figure out how to best put it into your resume or in that skills section. Because again, it might have been something you did as a volunteer 20 years ago, but if you have volunteer management experience from a volunteer thing you did 20 years ago and it doesn't fit on your resume, you can still put it in your skills. So, and again, talk about it when you get into the interview. And let's see, make time. So you're already doing that, make time to work on this stuff. And then I've already given you the template to have a tracking system for what you're applying to. So you guys are halfway there already with the prep work. And then there are the design and layout suggestions that we're already talking about your contact info, your summary, skills, and your experience. Your experience as far as you can go back, typically 10 years is where the cutoff is. So you can draw up experience after 10 years as it's relevant to the position. So what that means is you don't want to show any gaps in the last 7 to 10 years, but prior to that, you can start showing some gaps. So if you did something in web design 20 years ago, you could put that on the bottom of your resume. But you would want to skip anything in between that was, if you were a cashier somewhere or something, you could skip that if it's older than 7 to 10 years. And then that's about it. If you still have space, add an additional section. So if you do have very minimal experience to include on your resume, and you get to the bottom where you're like, well, I have 3/4 of a page. I don't think many of you will be at that point, but then you could say, maybe I'll add interests, or maybe I'll add some certifications, or fill in that other space with something. But most of you will be able to fill it, I think, no problem. And the last thing is review it. Make sure that it has consistent formatting. If you're using periods at the end of your bullets, make sure they all have periods. If you're not, none of them have it. Make sure that the dates and months are all written in the same format. Make sure you don't have any spelling or grammar errors. That's one of the ways to get kicked out early and for something silly, because again, when they're looking at 10 different people and they're seeing who they're going to invite for the interview, yours might be fantastic, but you have misspelled a key word, and they're going to say, well, this person doesn't have any attention to detail, so we're not talking to them. You don't want that to happen. Oh, I've already gone through all of this, I think. So these are some more of the things that will get you removed from the pool. Again, spelling, half thoughts, make sure that your bullets, so I would read your resume out loud to yourself, or put it in a TSS reader app online and let it read it back to you. See if the sentences make sense and that they're complete. They don't always have to be complete sentences. You can actually have a fraction of a sentence because you're writing in bullets, but you just want to make sure that you finished the thought. The thought is finished. So again, no pictures, unnecessary demographics. Again, we want you to, aside from your name, not really be very identifiable. Don't write anything negative. I don't think that'll be too much of a problem, but just in case, make sure that everything is positive. There's no inaccurate information. If you're listing dates, they're the same dates you have shown on LinkedIn. And again, avoid the overshare and the undershare. You're just trying to put enough information to get the interview. You're not going to be accused of fraud. If you leave something out, you're not going to be, you don't have to tell them too much that makes them say, well, I don't know if we want to interview this person because they've changed jobs too many times. And you don't want to provide not enough information. So there's that Goldilocks balance there. And then the ways to stand out. So like I said, it's a standard format. You're trying to make sure that you want to stand out, but you don't want to be going off of the standard format, essentially. So the way that you can stand out within the structured format is to be organized. It's amazing how many different resumes I see that are just all over the place. So if they get one, they're like, wow, this one is impressive just on the fact that it is organized and clear. Make it impactful, which means going back to that brainstorming before you put stuff on your resume. What are the numbers that you have changed in the past? What accomplishments do you have? Instead of just focusing on what your duties and responsibilities were, what are the things that you've done to contribute in the endeavors that you've done in the past? Make sure that it's customized to the company, and you can do that and focused on the company's goals. And that you will do through the summary statement. Like I said, you will talk about what you bring to the table and how that experience and knowledge will contribute to the position. So the first sentence is who you are. I'm a passionate web developer, experienced in JavaScript and React. I have 10 plus years experience in health management and bringing 10 years of experience into the position to help your company achieve XYZ. So it rolls from you into them. And then making sure that the keywords that they're using in their job descriptions have made their way onto your resume. And then another way is just to bring copies to the interview. So maybe not so much if it is not in person, although you can still say, if you need copies, I'll send them to you. If you want a copy of my references, let me know. Again, these things show them that you are helpful and you're forward thinking, which is the kind of person that they will want to hire. And integrate it with LinkedIn. So your resume should be the first thing they see. In most cases, they will also go fact check you, look you up on LinkedIn. So when they get to LinkedIn, they don't want to see an exact replica of your resume. They're looking to see what else they can see about you. So that's where you can write in paragraphs. You fill out the about you. And again, we're going to go over in module 3 all about networking and LinkedIn. But on your LinkedIn is not meant to be an exact replica of your resume. You'll have what you couldn't fit on your resume there. So volunteer work, where you, associations you're a member of. Latonia has been doing blog posts. So let them come to, when they've got 3 resumes in hand and they're like, who are we going to interview? Let them come to LinkedIn and choose you because you are active on there. You look professional. You've got, you look better than the other 3 people that they're looking at, essentially. If you need formatting help, like I said, just Google stuff. Look for examples, and you'll be able to find templates like I showed you, and then pick one that you like and just use that, because the resume is not, a lot of people get stuck on it. I've seen people get jobs with the worst resumes. it's really all about the content that's in it. It's not as much about what it looks like. So don't get hung up on that. Make sure you're just putting your best content, your best foot forward into the resume. I will pause right there to read these questions in the chat. If so, hang on one second. Frozen. Yes, I will put the link to that in the chat, Carolyn. Okay, cover letters is really fast. So I'm going to summarize all the information you can find about cover letters online. That's supposed to say be authentic and genuine, so not G. Make it clear about the job that you're applying for and the job that you want. So, and that you want the job. So the very first paragraph, the very first sentence is going to say why you were so stinking excited to apply for this job. And you're going to specifically say what job. And you're going to talk like you're talking to a person. So you want to read this out loud to yourself or have someone else read it back to you. If it sounds robotic or clunky or awkward, write it over, or even use talk to text and just talk it out. I like to, when I'm writing a blog, sometimes just put on the talk to text app in Google Chrome and just word write whatever I have to say. So you can say, dear hiring managers, I'm really excited about applying for this full stack developer position with blah, 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 because I just finished this really awesome bootcamp called Careers in Code in Syracuse. And we learned to da, 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 da. My capstone project was, and just be real and like you're talking to them, and you're going to stand out that way and show excitement for that job. Like I said, state the actual name and position because that is helpful to them. If they are getting a lot of resumes or they have multiple positions open, it's helpful for them to know very quickly what they're reading about. And then you're going to write it in the standard business letter format. I'll show you an example. And that is going to include the contact person's name. So this means you might have to do a few minutes of homework. If the job description is on Indeed, not on their actual website, you might have to go to their website and actually get a person's name. They might always not have the name, and that's fine, but you'll put, and it doesn't matter, you put their HQ. It's just a matter of, again, checking those boxes. And when they look at your cover letter versus others, yours will be complete and in business format, where if someone else will look like they did it in 5 minutes and didn't put much effort into it. 3 to 4, it should fit on one page. 3 to 4 paragraphs is all you need. Again, the first paragraph is going to be what you're applying for, why you're so excited for it. The second half of that second paragraph is going to be what makes you the best choice for the job, and then a closing, how they can reach you. So you can write all of that in a few sentences, or a few paragraphs, sorry. Oh, it's going through this again. Interesting. So back to that document, also has links to cover letters. So like I said, you can match to your resume, or maybe this is where you get fancy and creative. I don't think I have an opinion about that. That's okay. But what it does have is the standard business format with the address, dear, you can use the person's name. If you know the person's name, use the person's name. If not, then you can say, dear hiring managers. And this is very matter of fact. I still recommend sounding more enthusiastic right from the get-go. But it basically says what they're applying for, what they bring to the table, how this is why it's focused on them, how their experience is going. I believe my skill set will benefit this company. So how everything. Notice also that every sentence doesn't start with I. It says I in the beginning, but here it switches to my, this experience. Find ways. A lot of cover letters I read are, I am applying for this. I have been I have done this. I want to do blah, blah, blah. Like that's all focused on you. try to switch it to these other prepositions and other things so that it just sounds more natural, and also ends with how you help them in the job. And then the last section is, I'm looking forward to discussing this with you. Here's how you get in touch with me. Being very helpful, submitting that information. This person has even gone so far as to saying, look, I'm going to contact you if I haven't heard from you. So I like that as well. So I provided a couple examples in there for you to look for, but that's basically it for cover letters. How you can have that standout factor for cover letters is, I've given it all away now. You've already seen it. Having that clear purpose about helping them see why you are applying for this job. Customize it to the company and their needs, focusing again on their goals, showing that enthusiasm and excitement for the job. I can't tell you how many times when I interview people, the ones who are just, sometimes they do it just out of nerves, but the ones who are just doing it because it's like, I just need a job, so I'm just here to answer your questions and I'm really not happy to be here, I don't want to hire you. I don't care how good you are, how experienced you are, I really am not interested in hiring you. I want someone who is like, I'm so excited that I even have an interview. I can't wait to talk about this. Go back. I learned this early on in writing, to just go back, read stuff again, and read it with the frame of mind of, is this word or phrase necessary? We put all kinds of things in sentences that are redundant or just time filling or whatever. So you can go through and remove all that to shorten it up and to be more to the point. And again, I think it's very important to write as if you are talking to someone, and that whole business format. And the last thing is to sign it. So that is going a step above and beyond anyone else. Now that we're in digital world, take the 10 seconds it takes to use the digital signature and actually sign the letter, because that is just sort of puts the dot on the I there. So for both a good resume and cover letter, you're trying to show that you are organized. So that's why you want to use a simple standard format. Show that you are helpful. That's why you put your LinkedIn address at the top of your resume. That's why you put your contact information at the end of the resume or cover letter. Demonstrate your interest in that position. That's why you're going to use a summary that talks about how your experience and interest applies to the job, and how you're going to write about being excited in the cover letter. You're going to demonstrate your attention to detail. There's nothing worse than getting a resume that says, one of my skills is attention to detail, and then the first bullet of their experience is a misspelling or a grammar error. So make sure that those are working for you, not against you. Help them see you in the role, and that talking about yourself in an enthusiastic way and crossing over what your experience is and how it fits into the job they're trying to fill is how you can do that. Doing all these things shows that you can follow directions. There's so many people who don't submit a cover letter, even if it says it's required, or who make sure there's more and more jobs too that are putting in the job description, like, you must use the word rainbow in your cover letter. And that's a screening tool. More and more companies are getting hundreds of applications, maybe not so much in the coding world, but if you want to make sure if they have said somewhere in there, use the word rainbow, that you have put in the word rainbow. Otherwise, you're getting pulled out again, no matter how good you might be for the job. And you also want them to help you stand out. So that, I think, is the end. Let me grab that link and put it in the screen share, in the chat.
Thank you.
Sure. 1 second. Glad Zoom didn't crash on me again. Okay. Okay, Latanya has a question about completing the markup reflection form. So Latanya, that is for you and sort of for me. So I would recommend filling that out whenever you've done, a batch, 10, 20, or maybe if you're doing it weekly, you could do it weekly. It's really meant to help you take what you learned on a batch of them and make improvements for the second, moving forward. So instead of doing 50 of them and not really moving the progress any further, you could also do it like if we have it scheduled for a call, maybe you do it before then, so we have some fresh things to talk about. But I really was just using it for a learning tool because, you can do the job markups and not really ever progress anywhere if you're not stopping to reflect on what you actually learned from them. So that's my recommendation with that. Okay, feel free to unmute now if you have a question.
And you said any contact with you counts as a touch point, right? Like, so emailing you is a touch point, slacking you about, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we just want to make sure you're on track. So it doesn't have to be extensive. It doesn't have to be, I just want to make sure that you're getting through it. And if you have any questions, that you're getting answered. The only ones I'm tracking in your sheet are our calls, these meetings and the group coaching, but it'll be in the notes that you've had plenty of touch points. So any other questions about the resumes, the cover letters, or did I answer everything?
I asked a question earlier. I don't mean to be
Oh,
a
I missed
bully,
it. No, go
folks,
ahead.
I'm sorry. It was if we can standardize any parts of that cover letter rather than starting it from scratch each time. Does that make sense? Like maybe the last 2 paragraphs can just be standard, so you're not.
Yeah, you can. So another reason for doing the research is so that you get to a point where you're searching. You're going to start broad on your research, looking for front end, back end, web developer, webmaster, maybe looking for all kinds of different titles. But you should be getting to a point where there's really only 2 or 3 that you're really focused on. So when you're in that position, you only need 2 or 3 versions of a cover letter that you would be tailoring. So yeah, you totally will get to a point where you want to be at a point where you can update your resume and your template pretty quick, or in your cover letter really quickly, so you can, apply to 10 or more applications a week or something. But if you were starting from scratch on your resume or your cover letter, that would take you forever. So yeah, you do want to get to a point where you have a template. You just want to be changing the job title that you're applying for, the company. But once you get to that point, a lot of it should be pretty much the same. So you just want to tailor it to like what they do. So if you have some specific information that you could put on there, you would want to. But yeah, a lot of it at that point would be pretty much standard for you. So good question. Any other questions about the resumes or cover letters? Kyle?
Yeah, for the technology summary, should we just kind of be going through the syllabus and listing everything that we're going to be covering? Or, at this point, we really don't know these things yet, but.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I think, so what you can do, you'll be doing research for a while first, but if you saw something tomorrow that you wanted to apply for, you're like, this sounds cool, I don't want to maybe miss out on this chance. Go ahead and do it as practice. Fill it out and put the skills you're going to learn in this program. So you could put JavaScript, React, put all the different programs that you're using, Bootstrap, and then in your cover letter, you can say, I'm part of this program. I'm applying to this because I'm in this program and we're researching jobs and I really thought this was interesting. I would love to have the opportunity to do this. I've listed and let them know I've listed all of the things that we're learning and I expect to have by mid-September. This is what I'm going to know how to do. They, you never know how long their hiring practice is. The average is like 5 months. Actually, it's really long from start to finish when they put out the job description to when they accept it to when they do the interviews and actually hire someone. So they may only be finishing up or getting to the point where they're inviting people to interviews by the time you graduate. So, and even with the government, I've seen exceptions everywhere. Even in the government, we had someone apply who was not, like, you can't even get through the door if you don't have your degree. And this person, I think this was for our GS internship, she was not graduating until December. The door was closing like November 20th. So, we just had her say you graduated, say that you have this. By the time we do the interviews, you will have it, So that's okay, because you can either turn down the interview if they give it to you, or you can explain it when you do get the interview. So there's no crime, or you're not committing fraud or anything by doing that.
How far out beyond central New York and upstate New York does HackUpstate's Careers and Coding Bootcamp? How far is its reputation? I mean, locally, if you mention that, people will be very impressed. But if I, write to someone in Lincoln, Nebraska, let's say, where I used to live, that's why I'm picking on that poor town.
Yeah.
I mean, how?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, you're right. They're not going to have heard of it. So you take the opportunity to tell them about it. So I'm in this Careers and Code Bootcamp that does, the mission of it is to provide full stack, whatever, go to their website and grab whatever it actually says, full stack
Web development. Yep.
Training for women and minorities. And, I'm really honored to have been accepted in this program. So just tell them a little bit about it. And, hopefully they'll be like, oh, that's cool.
Would you ever include a link in the letter?
You could. It's generally not recommended to make them do work. So I would.
But I mean, it's right there. They don't have to look for it, if they do want it.
It's so I don't think there's any harm in doing that, but I would at least give them a little bit of explanation. And then the link,
Or if they really are interested in finding out more, they go to your LinkedIn and they see.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for a long time, so a lot of people already know I'm out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was just wondering about that because, what you're saying is wonderful, but I got to thinking, gee, well, so I talk about that and I'm not trying to say that people are mean, but someone might say, so. What do I care? I got MIT up the street. I can hire someone, so, but yeah, no, thank you. That helps.
Yep. Just talk up the program. So Domo, that's a good question too. Yes, you need to be residing in Syracuse or New York State for 2 years, but you can apply for remote work. So they just want to keep your butt here, but you can get your dollars from somewhere else. Because that's great. Bring the dollars into Syracuse. We need that.
Work for someone else, but spend the money from your paycheck here.
Exactly.
That kind of confused me at first because I thought, how is it helping the local economy if I'm working for Harvard or something, but I get it now. So it's yeah. And we're not going anywhere anyway, so we're fine. Yeah.
Okay, those are all really good questions. Any other questions? If not, any other questions about career coaching related stuff?
Well, yeah, I do have
Shaw.
one. We can talk about this personally later if you want, but a little bit about recent years, my story. I do have a gap in employment and it's health. So if I wanted to show, some of my experience that I would want to bring in, it is older than that because, I haven't, my last job with the NEA that ended in 2015. So everything is already older. And so they would see a gap.
Okay. Yeah.
But I've been on disability, so I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. In that case, again, you can't hide it. You could write it all kinds of weird ways, but they're still going to know it.
I don't want to hide it. I just don't know how to.
So,
because I don't want to tell my whole truth. I mean, the job that I told you about that I declined was in an organization where you had to have this truth and you had to tell them about it to get the job.
Yeah.
So it was like I was an open book, nothing was off limits, but I don't need to do that. I don't know what to do, and we can talk about that some more.
Yeah, we can talk about some more, but in general, the strategy would be to put it on, state the facts on your resume, and then you do whatever explaining you can in your cover letter, and then you need to network. Networking has to be part of your strategy.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. And that's, you know, that will come before I really do anything else probably. And I already have been kind of sort of, but it hasn't been focused in this field specifically. So, but yeah, I mean, because that's kind of a, and that's a sticky one because if they're not an employer, I don't know what you can do. But potential employer, I mean, they could get slapped. I'm not going to do this with all kinds of legal stuff because, you know, the reason you didn't hire me was, you know, I did a tour in Iraq and I had this, you know, gap, this isn't me, but had this gap in my employment because of PTSD, you know, and I can sue the off of you because I could, you know, so it's an interesting area, but we'll talk more about that. So, but I didn't know if it might help someone else to just bring it up in general.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question to ask.
We all have a journey that we've been through to get here. So thank you.
Yeah, and the strategy is going to be, I mean, networking has to be part of your strategy, but if you have anything to overcome, networking is even more part of your strategy, you know, because you need people to get to vouch for you and to know you and to give you a chance. So,
and not to belabor this because there's other people here, but part of it too with my story is that I've shown what I can do because I have actually survived the impossible. But also it's like, how much of that do I want to share?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, we'll talk about that. But
so
I think,
you know, so anyway, all right, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Whatever your circumstance, whatever your thing, you can always look at something as something that held you back or how you overcame it. I've had other people with different disabilities or challenges, and it's always like, you know, I have one person who had a mobility issue, and it's like, you're showing up way better and more reliably than other people who are completely bipedal, and you need to own that, you know. It's not holding you back. You are way more you know, diligent and fortuitous, or not have more fortitude than most of the other people.
Intestinal fortitude, my dad used to call it. I don't know if he made that, but it's like my big skill that should go at the top of the list is that I'm alive. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but that is an accomplishment. So,
so in your cover letter,
proud of
you
that, and I can bring to an organization that zest and that enthusiasm. But we will have our conversation offline then. Thank you.
Okay. Latonia, can you outline our communication channels again? I feel like I'm missing a channel or two. We're supposed to be tapping to keep current. Yes. So we have always the same Zoom link. If you go, I don't know if you guys know this, if you go into, I'm going to show you something in Slack because it may be helpful to you. So in Slack, if there's something that you're like, so if you go into the Career Coach channel, the very first thing that I shared with you was all of the where to get everything. So bear with me here. There's more stuff in here than I remembered. Okay, so this first post has everything, like where stuff is, when we're meeting, where to get stuff. If you're like, cool, this is going to get lost in, I'm never going to hear, that's great, but I'm going to lose it. You can go up here, and in the more actions, you can save it. So I can save this to my saved items, which will put it right here for me. Or you can also, so if this is about an upcoming event or something, you can go over to, where's it? Remind me about this. You can tell it to remind you in an hour later, set a custom so that, and then that will show up. Hang on, I'll let Carolyn back in. Oops, what did I do?
Sorry, I was doing something in the chat and I hit the leave button, which is right where I've been putting the chat. I did not mean to walk out on y'all. I am here.
That's okay. I was just showing how to save things in Slack so that you will have them in your saved items.
Yes. Thank you.
And then also you can set yourself a reminder. And if you set the reminder, it goes down here. The Slack bot will send you direct messages and it will send you a reminder. So you can essentially send yourself messages. So I have the one from the every night meeting that Dana sent right here. So I never have to look at it for it. It's right there that Slack bot sent to me. So essentially we have the group coaching every other week because I just didn't want to do it every single week. So we're doing it every other week because the modules, like when I started with Careers and Code, my task from Jesse was create 8 modules over the 24 weeks. So that's every 3 weeks. So they end up sometimes overlapping. So some weeks the module will take over the group coaching, but that means every couple of Fridays you get a Friday off. So, so we had a module this week. So next week is group coaching. The week after that, we have nothing. So you could kind of just hold this space every Friday, and then occasionally you get a Friday off. Then you have shared folders in Google Drive. One I shared with you directly, that's with me. So stuff will go back and forth between us there. You've got one that has the checklists, that document with these links in it that I'm putting in there for you. So any of the like helpful things I'm going to put in there for you. And then there is a career coach module in the Google Classroom, and that I'm just putting these modules, and they're not assignments or anything. It's just another place where you can find them, but they're also in the Google shared folder. So it's a little redundant. So sorry, it's a little confusing, but it just doesn't fit in with the teaching stuff very well.
I personally like the redundancy. At first it's like, oh my God, another assignment, what the, Slack, Google Classroom, email, but it's like people are really making sure we know. Really helping us because there's a lot here. And then you basically just, you mark them however you mark them in email or whatever you do to keep track. And then when you're done with those assignments, you can delete a whole bunch of stuff, But I personally find it helpful. I don't know about anyone else. At one point I might have felt overwhelmed by it, but it's like, it's all the same thing. So it's cool. So anyway, so yeah. Thank you.
So this recording will go into the shared Google Drive folder, the group shared the resources Google Drive folder, and it will also go into Google Classroom, and that's where the quiz will be for not for you guys, but for the people who couldn't make it here tonight. And and you can always feel free to message me on Slack. If I don't get back to you, remind me. It's not because I am purposefully not. I run 4 businesses and travel and do this. I do too much stuff, but I can't stop myself. So, so always never feel like you can't message me.
I used to be like that, so be careful because you will burn out.
I'm very good at my time management. So I do. Okay. I work a lot less. I still work less than a lot of people and still do all these things. So, but anyway, what I'm just saying is, if you don't hear back from me, it's okay to say, did you get that? Or did you know I'm still waiting for that? I know that this week there are a few people still waiting for resume reviews, but with the traveling, and I did work all day today with a client. So I'll be catching up this weekend.
I'm playing catch up too, because everything is a priority.
Yes, and that too.
So like, I got to do more on my capstone. I got to sit down and do this career thing because we have this awesome coach to help us. And I don't want to, assume that it's just going to happen like magic, but it's like, when? So I'm probably your one student that has like not submitted anything yet. But when I do, watch out, it'll be like, no, I won't do that. I promise.
You're fine. You're fine. Next week, next module, we talk about networking, and that is like my thing. I'm going to inspire all of you to start talking to strangers every day.
We're not supposed to talk to strangers.
And you can't tell
It's
me
not
you're an
fair.
introvert and it doesn't work for you,
No
because I
one's
am also an
stranger than
introvert.
me, okay?
All right, well, it is after 7. If you think of anything else later, you can message me. This will be in the folders by the end of the weekend. So yay, Friday. Have a good weekend.
Yes. Thank you so much, Laura. You're great. You're just terrific. I'm glad we have you.
Well, thank you, and likewise. So bye.
Take care. Bye, everybody. See you Monday.